Hello and welcome to the Product Biz Podcast. My name is Monica Little, and we are on episode number 57 with Laurie Wright, special guest, talking about planning. So, that word, planning, is one of those words where you either cringe at the sight of it because you're known for just winging it, or you get super, super, super duper excited to talk about all of the things that you have planned. But really, the true magic of planning is actually somewhere in between those two ends of the spectrum. The place where you know your dreams and goals and what you are working towards, and how to create a plan with wiggle room to actually achieve them because the plan gives you the vision and the guidance and what steps to take. Now, if you're not a planner and love being spontaneous all day, every day, or if you plan maybe a little bit too much without any room for spontaneity at all, well, this episode with Laurie Wright will share with you how to use planning in a way that aligns with you so you can make progress towards your goals, reflect on the steps you've taken, and stay motivated towards the big dreams that you have. Let me tell you a little bit about Laurie before we bring her on. Laurie Wright, aka Not Your Average Grandma, identifies herself as a late in life purpose finder who had a 30-plus year career in corporate America before finding her true passion as a certified master neuro coach. With her signature program, The Second Half Spark School, Laurie helps women to ignite a later in life spark by connecting with her authentic self and uncovering what they truly want out of life so they won't ever find themselves asking, what if. She also has a podcast called Living Your Sparked Second Half, where she covers topics intended to inspire listeners to live a happier and more fulfilling second half. Not only does she help people find their passion and purpose, but you're going to hear from her today on how to break down your big dream goal into 90 days, how to prioritize the right daily tasks to work on to actually make the progress you've always wanted, how you can plan in a way that leaves room for spontaneity. And we're going to talk a little bit about why people procrastinate, even when they plan, and how to make sure you don't fall into this trap of potential self-sabotage. And one of my favorite parts of this episode that you're also going to hear is what questions you can ask yourself at the end of each day to know whether you can do better, where you kicked butt, what you learned, so you're always reflecting on becoming the best version of you. This is a really great episode, and let's bring on Miss Laurie Wright so you can hear all the amazing things that she has to share on today's episode of the Product Biz Podcast. Are you ready to go behind the scenes and learn what it really takes to create consistent sales each and every month with your handmade small business? Join me, Monica Little, self-taught multiple six-figure small business owner and your product business coach, as I give you the insight and inspiration on how to better run your business and increase your sales in ways that you may not have even been aware of, so that your business can truly become what you knew it could be back when you first started. Learn how to let go of perfection, overcome the fear of failure that is holding you back, and finally start taking action so that you walk away feeling like you've cracked the code on how to run a successful small business. You're listening to the Product Biz Podcast. Well, hello, Laurie, and welcome to the Product Biz Podcast. I'm super excited to have you here today.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Going to be such a great conversation. So excited to have you on the show. And I always want to start off with just you introducing yourself. And today we're going to be talking about planning, like why planning is important, how people can plan, what you recommend for planning. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and also just give us a quick overview on why you are passionate about planning to kind of set the stage.
Okay, sure. Well, I first want to say, if the planning word just turned you off and you're like gonna hit like mute or like go listen to another podcast episode, don't do that, because it's kind of like a bad word to some people. It's like, budgeting, like, people hate that. But it's budgeting your time, and it's so worth it. And so stick around, because if you're like starting to tune out, you probably need to hear this episode. So that's what I want to start with. So I am Laurie Wright. I am also called Not Your Average Grandma on social media. And that was actually started as a joke, but it's turned into a business. And so I help women over 50 find new purpose in their life, mostly after the kids have grown, but anybody can have lost purpose or never found it. And I think when we get to midlife, we start to wonder if we've done everything that we're supposed to do in life, or we start to wonder, is this all there is? there's, questions start to come up. And if they start to come up, then it's important for you to kind of question that. It's important for you to pursue why are these questions coming up, and see what the answers are.
Yes, I love it. And love everything that you do, and love just hearing you talk about like what you're passionate about and how you help people to find their passion, and just seeing you smile when you talk about it. I mean, you can see it definitely lights you up. So tell me a little bit more about why you're also passionate about planning, because I know you have a couple amazing things that you work on, but let's talk a little bit
Yes.
specific about planning. So what has kind of gotten you into planning? Why are you passionate about it?
Well, I kind of fell into project management work. So my career, 35 plus years, I really was a waitress. And then it's so funny. I quit college and I didn't get my degree. And so I got a job as a receptionist. And then, it was funny. I was a waitress, and one of my customers who I was waiting tables on had a recruiting business. And he said, "Oh, you should come talk to me and I'll find you a job." And so I got this cool gig. I lived outside of Washington, D.C. in the suburbs, and I got this really cool gig as a receptionist in Georgetown. So it was like a really great location. And being a receptionist was probably the best job ever, because I got to know everybody in the company. We had a switchboard, and it was like the olden days before we had the cell phones. And so I got to know everybody's wife or husband and children who called in. And so I quickly, after a few months, got promoted. And then that just kind of led to the next job, And ultimately I fell into project management because I really was good at pushing projects to the finish line. I really like people, and I always liked working together on a shared goal with a group. And so it was just a natural progression for me to kind of fall into that. And I happened to land a job. I actually started as a technical writer because I was really good at writing. And so my jobs led to technical writing. And then I got a job at AOL, America Online, for if people don't remember what that little internet company was. It was number 3 at the time when I started there, but I ended up getting a job there, and soon thereafter they decided they needed project managers. And project managers were not a big thing back then. And the company was fairly small, but they had a problem with no person that was between the developers and the marketing group. And the marketing group, if you're familiar with marketers, all they want to do is interrupt and come up with these crazy ideas, and developers, get interrupted and they don't get their work done. So it was perfect for me because I was this liaison. I was interested in technology, but yet I was interested in planning, and I could put a plan together and say, okay, you want this is going to be when it's going to be done. And so I don't know that was one of my superpowers. As I've come to learn about my personality type, it's really not what I'm meant to do, but it's something I developed a skill in.
Mm.
And I think that's a really important point, because we sometimes think that what we're skilled at is what we should do. And it might not be what we're supposed to do, but we can use it. It can be our go-to. Like if we find out our superpowers is, we can use it in a way. And how I've used it is, my superpower is connecting with people. And I didn't get a certification in coaching until I turned 61. I'm 64 now. And I never realized my whole life that was what I was meant to do. But that's what I did in my project management job. I coached the team players to let's get on board and let's get this project, to the finish line. And it was so crazy when I finally realized this, that I had these little, and I had jobs that I hated as a project manager. Those were the jobs where I was a sole person on a project and I didn't have a team that I was working with. And I realized, oh my gosh, that was actually what I meant to do, is to bring people together, or to help. It's like an advice giver. That's what project manager is, figuring out, what's wrong and getting people together. And I have group coaching now. So it's kind of like I help kind of one person, but the whole group benefits from it. So it was so fascinating to me when I started to learn this stuff and how the puzzle pieces went together, that then I was like, well, there is this planning aspect that I have knowledge in that helps people find purpose. If you don't, first of all, you got to figure out what dreams you have. So it starts at the dreams, and that has nothing to do with planning. That has to do with creativity. But then once you decide what your dreams are, well, gosh, like you want to go on a trip? You want to go to your on your journey to purpose? You got to plan your trip. You got to like figure out, what steps and where you're going to go to the bathroom and where you're going to eat and all that. And so it's figuring that out, and you don't have to have the perfect plan. It's like you're going to get in your car and you know kind of the direction you want to go in, but you can be a little spontaneous. And I think that's where people get turned off by project managing, by planning, is that they think they have to know all the steps. They think they have to have it all done and know exactly where they're going. So it's a little different. It's like kind of the fun road trip with your friends where you're just like, we're going to go to Florida, but we don't really know where we're going to stay. We're just going to kind of play it by ear. And you kind of have to have a little bit of that leeway as you're kind of inventing what you want to do or what you think you want to do. And it's more of an experiment. Like, did I like this town? Not really. I don't think I'll go back there, but let's try the next town. And it's just like trying things on and seeing if they excite you, if, they make you excited when you get up in the morning to do that next thing. So planning, I want people to keep the spontaneity, but that's what makes it fun, and not feel like it has to be so rigid. And people think it has to be rigid.
Yes, I love that. Oh my gosh, I wrote down so many things when you were talking because I feel like that's such a perfect answer in terms of how you broke it down with having your dreams, your passion, your purpose, that creativity. Like that has to be outlined. But then in order to get there, there's got to be a little bit of planning. Like, yes, have some room for spontaneity in there, but there's got to be a way, some sort of steps that are actually getting you on that path with some wiggle room, like you said, for some of those exits that you're going to take or those stops you're going to make. But I would love to hear from you. So someone who has that dream, that vision, that knows where they want to go on a very tactical level, what do you recommend for them to do next? How do they break it down? Are they setting like a 90-day quarterly goal, an annual goal? And how do they break it down, determine the projects? So talk me through how you really teach and coach people on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's very easy to get overwhelmed when you're starting out, because there's all the things you have to do. And you really have to think about what's the next most important thing. We tend to be so critical of ourselves, and we think, this is the thing that I love about planning, is that when you do the kind of planning that I do, it doesn't take a lot of time, but you start to see how much progress you're making. We think we're spinning our wheels and we're not making progress, but we really are. And you need that validation, and a plan and looking back is a big thing that I do, is a way to pat yourself on the back, because you get to the end of the month and you think, man, I haven't done crap. But then you look at your list and you're like, oh my God, I did all this stuff. And so I think that's number one, is to reward yourself for what you've done. And if you don't have a plan, you don't know what you've done, that you're kind of looking at and marching to. So I would say definitely 90 days, because you can look ahead at 90 days. I think people, especially at my age, a lot of people say, what's your 10-year plan? Now, you might have some listeners who, that's great, you want a 10-year plan, but frankly, I'm 64, and I don't think 74 is too far out there for me. I want to think about more like my 5-year plan. And so sometimes people think, oh, that's too far. And so I do think sometimes you just got to, how far do you want to go? And I think at my age, a year. I don't go further than a year. I mean, I have my long-term dreams, but if I'm really focusing on what am I really actively pursuing, it's something within the next year. And so set that big goal for where do you want to be in a year? And then, okay, what in the next 90 days, what will take me closer to that? And that gets you going, and And so I do a 90-day, and every Sunday night, I sit down and look at my week. I look at a lot of my stuff. So I have a Google Calendar, so I look at my my schedule, like put my appointments down, and then in between the appointments, like what do I need to get done?
Mm-hmm.
What am I working on right now? You have product owners you work with. You should be setting revenue goals. Like, how much revenue do I want to make in the next 90 days? And I'll say, what's the action? So if revenue and making revenue and keeping a consistent income comes in, what are the projects that are going to get you that revenue, and making sure those on your list. And so,
Beautiful.
yeah. And so I always look ahead at the week, and then I plan tomorrow. I plan tomorrow. I just make sure before, and oftentimes I do it in the morning. I get up in the morning, not the night before. And I get up in the morning and I say, okay, what are the things? And I pick like 3 top things I want to do. I don't do all the 3 things necessarily, but these are like my top 3 priorities. And I think it's always important that you have one thing on your list that sparks you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I call it my sparked goals. And so, yeah. And so I have 3 main things, and then I might have a lot of little things. I took a Franklin Covey class back when I was at AOL, and it was really interesting and it really helped me a lot. But there's, what the way they teach is that you have an A priorities, B priorities, and C priorities. And A priorities are got to get them done today. And then you sort through the A's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because if you have a really busy schedule, you can put a lot of C's on, and they might be quick and easy to do, but they're going to eat away at your time that you need to get the A's done. And
Yes.
C's are more like, I can get them done sometime this month. So yeah, so I always plan tomorrow, plan the week, and every month I look at the month like ahead, and I don't dissect the month like, oh, but it's more like, okay, am I going away for the weekend, or is it like, if I'm doing a launch, then I'll have that time blocked off. So it's not my week planning is more detailed at the appointment level. My month planning isn't so much detailed, but it's just like an overview. What are my big goals for the 30 days, and making sure that they line up with the 90-day goal. They're taking you closer to the 90-day goal. And okay, where am I going to fit the work in to get this done in the
Yes.
month? And that's essentially what I'm doing with the month. But the most important thing that I do every 30 days is I do look back. And I have it's like a 5-sheet like summary review. And the first thing on the list is, what did I achieve this month? And it could be something I learned like every day. So my day planner, what I love about I do with my day planner is that I ask myself 3 questions every day. And at the end of the day or the next morning, what did I learn? What can I do better? And what did I rock at?
Mm,
And it's a reminder that every day you're learning something.
I
And
love that.
I say learn or realize, because I always want to document my aha moments, my breakthroughs. So what did you learn and what did you realize? I usually try to listen to a podcast episode every day. So I usually learn something from that, or a coaching call or something. But like I was just telling you, I started using ManyChat, which is a little Instagram messaging thing you can use with your customers. And so, like, that's a great thing to write down. So at the end of the month, I'm looking back and I'm saying, I learned that. Oh my God, totally forgot. In 30 days, you're going to forget what you learned. And so, what could I have done better? It's always revisiting, hey, did I not show up in the way that I really wanted to show up? Was I inconsistent about something that I committed to be consistent on or something? It's not like meant to beat myself up, but it's just a reminder of like, okay, or maybe you had a harsh word with somebody and you're like, dang it, I need to go back and say I'm sorry or do better. Why was I like, it's a reflection time
Mm-hmm.
that what and an awareness of how did I operate today, I think, which is important to do. And then, okay, of course, what did I rock at? Because there's always one thing you rocked at in the day. And it's just kind of, it's just a reflection period every day, that at the end of the month, you can really be proud of what you've done. And it keeps you going, honestly, because when you are, especially in a business that you're growing, there are growing pains, and you're going to have like this roller coaster ride. And when you're in a dip, you want to be able to look back at when
Mhm.
you were like at the top, whoa, you want to look
Yes.
at those. You want to remind yourself of those because they're more coming. But, planning just helps you instill that, the confidence that your success is inevitable, and the diligence, I think, the discipline that
Mhm.
comes with, being a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with what you said in terms of writing down your wins. I actually have a journal just for that. I used to have a journal where I would just brain dump and flow write every single day. And then I would also put my wins on like the second page. But I was like, I want a journal just for my wins because exactly like you said, when those days that are down, I can open up that journal and be like, okay, I may be having a bad day today, but look at the last month, 2 months, or the last week of all these amazing things that have happened. So I love that you said that because that's actually a practice that I do too. And I feel like it's so important because there are inevitably going to be harder times for any business, no
Mhm.
matter what you do, no matter
Yeah.
what's going on. There's going to be highs and lows. So having something to remind yourself of how great it has been and how great it will be as long as you persevere through this low is such a good physical thing to have to really, really support
Yeah.
you and lift those spirits, which I love that you
Definitely.
said that.
You
And
know
one
what I
thing,
did too that's really been a big shift for me, I think, in terms of planning that I really have loved? So I because I created my own system because I used several planners. In fact, in my drawer, I can show you, there's a big pile like this big. And I was just so trying when I started my business to find the perfect planner. And then I finally was like, I like this piece of that one and I like that part of that one. So I created my own. And then I went to Vervante and I had them put together a book. And it's nothing fancy. It's just black and white. The cover is color, but um so it's just nothing fancy, but it was something I wanted to give to my students that would help them. And I tell my students, I say, you don't have to use this. Just find something that works for you. And this is what I do. And so I would order every 90 days for myself this booklet that I created. Well, I realized, oh my gosh, these are all in PDFs. I can import them into my Remarkable. And I have a Remarkable. And so now I love my Remarkable because I don't have to waste paper anymore. And I can just write it on my Remarkable. And you can also, so if you find a planner you like, you could take a picture of it and import it into your Remarkable or import it into you because I have an iPad too, and Notable is a software that you can buy and you can make all your stuff. It's just like life changing because like I don't have to worry, and I would have to take remember my paper book everywhere I go, but I
right,
take my
right.
Remarkable and it's like, oh my gosh, I can travel with it and do all the things in it, and it has all the history in it. So if I want to go back and say, well, what was I doing a year ago? It's so easy to bring up. Yeah.
Yes, I love
So I
it.
love the Remarkable.
Yeah, and for someone who's listening who may not know what it is, because I just recently found out about this, because a lot of people at the James Wedmore conferences are walking around with them. But Remarkable is basically like a tablet, but it's meant to be a journal. You have basically a pen, and you can create folders to put in all of your different notes and really go back to it. So exactly like you said, of really getting rid of the paper, but still writing and physically putting notes and filling in whatever you want to fill in. So
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
gotten one
It's
yet.
fantastic. I
I'm
love it.
such
I
a like
actually
paper
have, it's funny you
person.
should say that because, you tend to buy these things. And I had an iPad and I was like, well, why can't I use an iPad? And I asked a couple people that I know well and trust, and they were like life changing. And I was like, okay,
Mm. And now you agree.
I'm ordering it.
Now you're pitching it to
Yeah.
everyone,
Yeah.
including me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I do want to circle back to one thing that you said because I loved how you took us from the high level goal to the daily stuff. So I just want to recap it and then I have a question for you that coincides with it. But basically what you said is you have like your 1 year goal of where you want to go and then break it down into 90-day increments and the specific action and the specific projects you are going to take in those 90 days to help you reach that revenue goal for the 90 days, which then funnels into the revenue goal for the year. So I
Yes.
love how you said that. And then what you mentioned is every single Sunday, look at your week up ahead, just kind of plan in some things, see what's going on. But the make sure that every single day, or at least what you do, and I'm actually a big fan of this too, either the morning of, plan that particular day, what you are going to do, those top 3 things, or you can do this the day before, right? Just to kind of level set
Yes.
what you're doing the next
Yes.
day. I absolutely love the A, B's, and C's that you said, because then when you get on a daily level, now you have those top 3 things, those A's. Those are the things that are actually going to push you towards that 90-day goal, those projects and those action items that are going to get you there. While there's those administrative things, the C's, that I feel like so many people get stuck doing those C things and they never actually, maybe get out of their comfort zone to do those higher level projects, those A items that you said. So talk me through, do you notice, or what do you tell people, or why do people struggle with this in terms of maybe, sticking with the easy stuff when they are planning, they default to some of those things, or what are some of those traps that maybe you see as people start to plan?
Yeah, that's a good question because I'm guilty of this too, right? Procrastinating the things that'll push us the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first thing is be aware of what those are because the things you're procrastinating, if they're really going to move your business, there's something deeper that is causing you to procrastinate.
Mm-hmm.
So is one of the things that I procrastinate is going live or doing videos. And it's like, well, what is it? And I, start to uncover there's some issues with me in terms of value. Like, I when I was some things that I've uncovered through coaching is that I was an accident. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of this stuff is bubbled up. It's like I was an accident. So part of me is like, well, I really desire to love and to feel needed. And when you show up and you get on video, that's a real chance for rejection. That's a real like I'm going to be judged. And so it's like, okay, I'm aware of this now. I'm aware of the why I'm procrastinating, but I'm also aware that if I don't do that, I'm not going to get to my goals. I'm also aware
Yes.
that I'm not going to reach the people that I want to help. And so it's just we procrastinate because there's something beneath the surface that we need to deal with. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
iceberg, and we want to deal with all the easy things because the underneath things are really touching on something that is something that we need to deal with, and we might not even, it might be a complete blind spot as to why that's doing. So it's like, now I know enough to coach myself, but initially I didn't have that any kind of awareness about that blind spot.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's really cool that you can do that. But yeah, I think also I think that there's different people have different points of view. So if you have followed somebody or you've read a book, I know that there is one concept that do the easy things first because then you'll feel accomplished. Whereas I know other people are like, no, do the hard thing first because that's going to move you faster and further. I know copywriting is like the thing that I would be last on my list as my favorite thing to do, but it's actually the thing that once I finish it, I feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard somebody say this recently, and I think this is so true, is that think about the future feeling that you'll have once you've completed that task. And if it's like exercise, right? When you finish that exercise, those endorphins are going to be crazy, and you're going to be like, "Oh my God, why did I procrastinate this? Because I feel so good after my workout, so much more energy." And it's like kind of that with the things on your list. Once your copy is done and you've got that ad running or you've got that, uh, caption written for your Instagram post, I mean, man, it feels good. It feels good. And these people are interacting with you. But I put that off for a week. So who didn't I help? So yeah, so I would say just kind of really tune into what's behind the reason for procrastinating and
Mm-hmm.
doing the easier things first because they're probably things
Yeah.
that come easy to you and don't make you and are in your comfort zone. more
Yes,
so.
100%. And that even
Yeah.
happens to me because it's so funny. The things that you say, like I do all of these things. So I love this
I
conversation because I'm like, yes,
know.
this is what I do. But I'm a big fan of every single day. Exactly like you said, I have my top 3 tasks. And then I have maybe 4 or 5 admin tasks that I only will let myself work on those admin tasks for about an hour. So as soon as that hour is done, I'm like, okay, these are like your C items, my admin tasks that it would be great if I got them done today, but if I don't, I can work on them tomorrow. And the rest of my day is for these top 3, these A items that are going to push me forward. And I know that there are days where I have my 1 hour on my admin tasks and I actually finish all of my admin tasks. And I'm just like, no, I really don't want to work on these other projects, these bigger tasks, because they are outside of our comfort zone too. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the things that we're not used to, the things that don't maybe come easy to us, the things that are going to stretch us. And like you said, maybe like showing our face more, doing something uncomfortable. So I love what you said of really having that awareness and maybe asking yourself, why am I procrastinating on these projects that I know are going to take me closer to my goal? What am I scared of? Is it fear of judgment? Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of spending all this time and it not working out? Is it fear of not being smart enough or good enough? And then once you really start to recognize those, well then like you said, it's a process of working through it and acknowledging it. But that awareness really is important. But what you said about feeling as if the task was done, like when you really don't want to do something, but if you can just visualize, okay, what is it going to feel like when this is done? Am I going to feel like a badass? Am I going to feel like I can do anything? Am I going to feel a weight off my shoulder? I love that, because then that actually gets you excited versus thinking of like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I really don't want to do this. I've been procrastinating for 3 weeks. Now I finally have to do it. So I think that is an absolutely beautiful tip of getting into the feeling and the motion of it being done. And if it feels good, then it should like catapult you to be like, okay, let me do this because I want to feel that way. I want to feel accomplished and I want to feel like I'm on the right path. So I think both of those tips, the awareness of maybe why we're procrastinating paired with what is it going to feel like once you finish it, man, that's just going to propel you forward. I absolutely love both of those tips that you shared with us.
Yeah, I think, also creating an identity of your future self really helps because, and I have one. Have you created one? Because this is something our coach
Tell me
teaches
more.
us.
Tell me more. I don't know if I
So
have one.
my identity is Phanama Lamacorn
Mm,
Laurie.
yeah. I remember you
Beyonce
saying that.
has one. She's Sasha Fierce. I
Yes.
was like, oh, she does that too because she's apparently like really shy, and when she gets on stage, she needs to channel this performance person that's inside of her. And so you're basically kind of channeling the person that you want to be. And so you have to operate as that to be that. And we tend to stay in the identity of the struggling entrepreneur or the struggling person who hasn't ever found purpose or whatever that might be. I call my struggling person scared settler because she's settling for a life that is passionless and purposeless. And so I think identifying with the identity that is causing you to procrastinate, that is causing you to stall on your dreams, because Phenomenalama Corn Lori, she was Phenomenalama Lori, but I decided because somebody told I was at a retreat and it was a yoga retreat and we were sharing and I shared this that was my future self and went a step more into her and one of the people was like, we had llamas growing up and they're really mean and they spit on you. And I was like, oh, well, that's not my experience with llamas, but in that case, let's make it a llama corn. So it's part llama, part unicorn. And so, so that's phenomenal llama corn. And then I found out there are llama corns. It's a mystical creature and they have
No
t-shirts.
way.
So I didn't even know it and I invented it, but it was already invented. So so I think, I always think about what would phenomenal llama corn Lori do? Would she be procrastinating and not doing her copy or not going on Facebook and doing her thing or whatever, Instagram, whatever. So I think that really helps me because when you're thinking about how do I want to feel, it's kind of like, who am I? Who am I being? And so you have to be that future version of yourself and operate like her, even if you don't have the success that yet. Yeah.
100%. I agree with that so much. And even with someone who might be saying, I know right when we started this episode, you were saying, some people just hate the planning word and automatically will be like, nope, not listening to this. But those people potentially identify with, I'm not good at planning. I'm not good at sticking to a plan. I'm not good at identifying tasks. I'm not good at XYZ. But even that's something that you can shift. Like, okay, I'm actually great at planning, or I'm great at following a plan, or I'm learning, I'm becoming better. I'm trying, just at least shifting it to that perspective to acknowledge where you want to be or where you're going in terms of level of planning skill. I think that's even something people can embody too. And I love how you also said that you weren't innately good at planning, but you developed that skill. So it's
Right.
not like something that people, you have it or you don't, and you're shit out of luck if you don't have it. It's actually like something you can learn, and you can start to embody it, and you get better at it the more that you do. So that's one thing I want to ask you. What do you say to the people who are just winging it all the time and feel like that works for them? Maybe because they say to themselves that they can't plan, or they tried it and it doesn't work. Like, what would you recommend for someone who's maybe in that place right now?
Well, if you have tried planning and you are haven't stuck to it, I would say look at what you're planning, because when you're excited about what you're planning, you want to put it down and you want to
Mm.
work towards it. So there's something off there about what's on your list. It's what I call a, it's you want to have the right things to do, not the wrong things to do.
Yes.
And I say you want to have a to-do list with oomph, and you don't want to look at it and, that's why you avoid planning, because it's nothing good on your list. So
Mhm.
that's how I'd speak to the people. I also think that I call them overwhelmed wingers, because being a winger overwhelms you. And so if you're dealing with overwhelm, start planning and start embracing it. But I think some people are brought up with by people who have modeled for them this whole winging way. And so part of their belief system is that, oh, you don't need to plan, or planning is stifling, or whatever it may be. So if you really don't like planning, there's a little bit more, I think, to dig into. But I
Mhm.
would also like to speak to the people who are planners. I call them organized planners, because planning can be a crutch too. So if you're planning a lot
Yep.
and you're buying a lot of planners, then your focus is planning just for the sake of planning, and it's not really paying attention to what is in your plan. And so I think that organized planners, I have these identities baked into my, I have scared settler, as I mentioned, and I have this overwhelmed winger, and I also have organized planner, because I think it helps describe for my audience the behaviors that they're stuck in. And so once you realize that, oh my gosh, I am playing this role and it's not being helpful. And so that's why I'm using these terms, because I know these people well, and I've been them in my former life. I've rotated through the different roles. But for me, being a project manager, I would call myself, that's what I was, an organized planner, because I was organized, I was a planner, but nothing that, first of all, I was planning only my work life. I had no plan for my personal life, and that therefore I was unfulfilled. I didn't have anything that, it was like, I was a workaholic, and I had a hard time shutting my computer. And I would say that organized planners often are people who are workaholics and are shutting off their dreams.
Mm.
They're not tuned in to their dreams. And so that is, to me, a red flag. If you're like super organized, they have a false sense of fulfillment, because they're just like having their planner filled out and checking things off. But like, are those things really moving you to some dream or moving you to some goal? So there
Yes.
can be this obsessive planning kind of personality that is actually hurting you. So there's like
Mhm.
the winger, you could do a little bit more planning, but the planner, you could do a little less planning. So yeah,
Yes.
there's kind of a happy medium there.
Yeah, there's something I posted on Instagram maybe a month or so ago. It totally aligns with what you're saying, but to some extent, planning too much is actually a form of procrastination, right?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
can procrastinate by creating a plan and not doing the plan, but you also can procrastinate by planning too much, that you're planning like months and months and months in advance. And it's like, okay, instead of planning, you actually have to start doing, right? Because planning can be a procrastination tactic.
Yes.
Learning can be a procrastination tactic, like continuing to learn more instead of just doing the damn work that you got to do, right? So it's funny because we kind of see this spectrum, and you see both of the potential positive and negatives on both sides, no matter if you are a winger, like you said, just winging everything with no plan, or maybe planning too much. So it's really just about this balance. And I love how you even mentioned right at the beginning too about leaving room for spontaneity, right? So maybe not time blocking every single second of your day, but having those general things that you want to do, knowing if they don't get done, all right, there's tomorrow, but just making sure that you're focused on the right thing and that you're actually making progress towards
Yeah.
those right things. So
Yeah.
I think everything that you shared has just been so
Yeah.
aligned with that.
Yeah. And even if you like, I'm going to be totally transparent. I didn't plan my day this morning. And guess what? The two big things on my list yesterday, I didn't get done yesterday. So I was like so tired last night. And I was like, I need to do these things. I need to do these things. And I was like, you know what? They won't be good if I do them. And, you know, there's the four agreements. Have you read that book? And
Yes.
one of the
Yep.
things is always do your best. And I love the perspective of your best is not necessarily pushing yourself to do something when you're exhausted, when you're not feeling and aligned with that thing at the moment. And so I started thinking, I want to do my best. And so what I did is I said, I'm going to get up early and I'm going to get those two things knocked out before I had a 7:30 meeting with my project manager. And so I'm going to get those done before that. And I did. And so give yourself grace. I mean, you don't have to be perfect. And yeah, it's not about putting everything down that you did during the day. I think what's important is number one is that you are reflecting on what you did do and that you are not running around like a chicken with your head cut off. So you know what you got to do, your top two or three things, and you're focused on those and you get them done. And then you feel really good. And that's the other thing is the reason we feel overwhelmed is a lot of it is because we don't feel productive. So we feel like we're running like on a hamster wheel. Just by writing the stuff down in a very simple way is so satisfying to the brain that you start to feel productive. You start the overwhelm goes away and you have this sense of like a security that like, I'm it's under control now. It's like you feel this, and I have these two things I evaluate every day on a scale of 1 to 10, and it's energy and productivity. And they're always pretty high. And I know they're pretty high because I feel like I have a handle on my day. Just planning will bring you this whole new set of feelings that you probably haven't had for a while if you're feeling overwhelmed and
Mhm.
unproductive.
Beautiful. And I wrote down the 5 things that you said you mentioned you do on a daily basis. So you write down, what did I learn or what did I realize? I love that. What
Mm-hmm.
can I do better? What did I rock at? And then measuring your energy on a scale of 1 to 10
Yes.
and
Yeah.
measuring your productivity on a scale of 1 to 10. I think this is so awesome. When people play sports, professional athletes, they always watch the tapes. They play a game, and then when the game is done, they watch the tapes and they actually see, okay, what did we do good? Where can we improve? What fell off here? Where did we lose communication? What happened? And essentially what you're doing every single day with this daily reflection is watching the tapes
That
and
is such
really
a good analogy.
acknowledging,
Yeah.
yes, and acknowledging where you have room to grow. And I think this is so important because especially the 1 to 10 on energy and productivity, if you're not aware of if your energy is totally drained, if you're not aware that your productivity was down because you were bouncing from social media to Facebook to Instagram to Facebook back and forth, well, then the next day is going to be exactly the same. So, having these 5 individual questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis, if the person listening right now just takes that away and does that they're going to be golden. Like, so good. Absolutely love that tip that you shared.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Works for me.
Yes. And I like what you said too, like find what works for you, which is perfect.
Yeah. But I think the thing that I wanted to stress there is don't try to be perfect. There's no perfection here.
Mm-hmm.
There's just having a handle on your life.
So beautifully said. Well, thank you, Laurie. I think that is just a phenomenal way to wrap up this episode. So thank you so much. Please share with everyone listening where they can find you and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
Your Instagram or anything else
I thought you were going to refer to your show notes. Okay, sure. Yeah, so notyouraverage.grandma.com is my website. I have a podcast called Living Your Sparked Second Half. And so I'm Not Your Average Grandma on Instagram and on Facebook. So just kind of Not Your Average Grandma is where you can find me.
Awesome. And yes, I'll make sure to link that in the show notes so people can find it. But thank you so much, Laurie. Such a great conversation.
Yes.
And so grateful to have you on the Product Biz Podcast.
Grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.